Hello, everybody. We're so excited for this webinar. We hit our max capacity as we knew we would. And I believe we're also live streaming on LinkedIn. So if at any point
Fantastic.
Get kicked out, you can head over there as well and watch us on the Tastemaker LinkedIn. But an official welcome to this webinar, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. As you all know, search has changed more in the last 18 months than it has in the previous decade. And as Google evolves from a traditional search engine into an AI-powered answer engine, the strategies that worked even a few years ago are no longer enough. So that's why we are so excited to bring you a free webinar with renowned food blogging SEO consultant Casey Markee, the new SEO rules of 2026. So welcome, Casey.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So before I kick it over to you, Casey, a little bit of housekeeping on our end. As a registered attendee for everybody watching this, you will get an email with the recorded replay. It's going to be delivered right to your inbox as soon as this webinar wraps. And then you'll also be able to find it on YouTube. And like I said, should be live streaming to our LinkedIn as well. And then to kick off the chat, we want to know who's here, who's joining us. So please drop your name and where you're tuning in from into the chat box. We will also have a Q&A if there's time. There may not be time at the end. So be asking your questions. You can drop it into the chat box here on the right, and then we'll circle back to that throughout and at the end for Q&A. So Casey, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. I'm going to be doing about a 20-25 minute presentation, maybe longer. Depends on how many animals interrupt me. We have gone from 2 cats at the Markee Mansion to 6 cats over the last 4 weeks. Good times. And even though they're up, they can open doors. So I do not be surprised at all if one of our furry friends happens to walk in here and jump up on the keyboard, because it happened yesterday during an audit. Good times for sure. Really appreciate you all taking time out of your day to attend this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen. We're going to go ahead and do this right here. You can see hopefully on your screen. Let's see. Yeah.
Looks great.
New SEO rules of 2026 here. Why clarity beats keywords. Let me see if I can move this up. I'm not even sure if you can see what I'm moving there, but we're good to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about, as Abby specifically said, how Google has changed from a regular search engine to an answer engine. And this presentation builds on an article that just went live yesterday in Search Engine Land called The New SEO Rules for Bloggers for 2026. It is by far the largest and most detailed article I have ever published privately. It takes a good 30 minutes to get through. My wife doesn't even like to talk to me for more than a couple minutes. So I don't know how you guys are going to get through a 30-minute article, but I do appreciate it, and I will thank you in advance. So first, a little bit about me before we get going here. Let me see if I can actually get this to move. Let's see here.
I can see your mouse moving.
Yeah, you can see the mouse moving, which is great, but for some reason, it is not advancing. Well, it worked. It worked when Leslie and I were playing with it.
You're just going to have to talk to us.
There
you are. I see it.
All right, here we go. So found the right one. So for those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Casey Markee. I'm the SEO consultant for MediaWise. I have been focused on the food and lifestyle niche for 25 plus years. It is not flippant for me to say that I have seen it all. I've done everything from working on Dogpile to positioning pharmaceutical drugs at the top of Google. I was there through when Google first launched, through the Florida update, from when Panda was specifically called the Content Farmer update, to Penguin, to now to the launch of Gemini. My goal here is to demystify what's happening for a lot of bloggers. But before I do that, I did want to give you an update. I know there's several of you have asked how my daughter Kelsey is doing, and I really appreciate that. She had a very severe motorcycle accident on July 2nd in Dallas. She and her boyfriend were thrown off of a bike. She flew about 60 feet through the air, broke her pelvis in 4 places, broke multiple bones. Pretty crazy. But she is a Escoffier culinary graduate. She's a baker by trade. She does not have the use of both of her hands right now. She's wearing casts. But as you can see, she's recovering pretty well. So for those of you who reached out, really appreciate that. We really appreciate it. Again, I know several of you reached out by email or by Facebook and want to let you know that she's doing well. And she will be able to fly back up here to Colorado on Sunday. They've been down there working rehab and getting her adjusted so they can move her from a wheelchair to the actual plane. And she's actually going to be flying up here in Colorado on Sunday. So we're excited to have her up here and she can start her rehab. So moving on here, we're going to talk a little bit about how search has changed over the last 18 months. This is basically what we're going to discuss today. Why search has changed, the new rules that move the needle, what advice to ignore, and there's a lot of it out there. I know it's very loud and noisy in this space. What should you as a blogger listen to you? What should you ignore? What advice from your ad companies is really worth implementing? We're going to try to get through a lot of that today. The very first thing that we're going to talk about is why search has changed. It's gone from basically a one long page of blue links, kind of a synthesized answers page, to a front page that Google now automatically converts on various metrics. We've got substantially reduced carousels. We've got AI overviews. We haven't moved fully into AI mode yet, which is good. AI mode is basically Google's synthesized answer, their version of an answer engine where their goal is to keep the traffic on Google as long as possible. So they take everything, they put it into short summaries to kind of keep you from clicking through. Their goal is to keep you on the site. Now, the good news is, if there is any good news about AI mode, is that it doesn't seem like Google is confident yet enough to push out AI mode live. And that's great because earliest projections we have is that the average blogger, when AI mode goes live, would lose about 30% of their traffic immediately. Now, on that note, there has been many people, myself included and others, Lily Ray and others, have pushed repeatedly to Google to bring back recipe carousels because as part of AI mode, there were no carousels previously. But now, if we go into AI mode now, there are recipe carousels. They're actually pretty good. They're continuing to improve. There's even another version of that that's going to be launched in the next 6 weeks. I've seen a beta of it. And it is very similar to what we have now. So the good news is at least we won't lose recipe carousel, as we call it, traffic completely if AI mode goes substantially wider for most queries in 2027. Here's basically what Google has done. We're moving from a search engine to an answer engine, and you heard Abby mention that on the intro. This is basically where we're moving from 10 blue links, from readers clicking through to the site, to one synthesized answer at the top. Basically, one answer to rule them all, so to speak, where Google wants to keep you on their site as long as possible. Google then uses a process called fan out query to basically provide linked answers to keep you, again, kind of in a rabbit hole. If you don't like the answer there, you'll click on another link. It'll process things. It'll give you through a tunnel. But their goal is to still keep you on Google as long as possible. And how do we optimize that? Well, it's not so much I've got to get this amount of links, or I've got to optimize my content in this specific way, or I've got to follow a specific formula. You win by being the source that Google trusts the most. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that involves. So there's basically new SEO rules that bloggers, content publishers need to be aware of. It's not enough for you to have the best recipe. Everyone thinks they have the best recipe, but we also need to make sure that our expertise is coming through. Did you test the recipe? Have you optimized that recipe specifically for users and LLMs? Maybe many of you have heard, we even had shirts that we handed out a couple years ago at Tastemaker Chicago, where Casey says optimized for toddlers and drunk adults, and now it's toddlers, drunk adults, and LLMs. And it's very similar. It's not flippant. That's basically what we have to do. There's very specific things that we need to do to optimize for this new Gemini first answer engine that is Google. And the first thing is we want to write for people first, then structure it so machines can parse it. There has been recent webinars lately where, and we won't mention any names, Raptive, where they're specifically saying you don't want to optimize for LLMs. Well, respectfully, that's terrible advice. There are specific ways that you can make your content both highly usable and compartmentalized for users, but also to make it easy for Gemini and other LLMs to parse it. And it's really simple. It's just understanding we know based upon released white papers and what Google has released itself for Gemini that they tend to focus on the first 300 to 500 words of the page. So we want to make it easy for Google to find and pull out our main ideas at the top of the post whenever we can. If you're doing an article on how to drain pasta, for example, you don't want to send those people through 6.5 paragraphs of information and all the way down to the bottom of the page before you answer that question. And we want to make sure that we're answering that information towards the top of the post. We also want to make sure that we're structuring things in an easy to crawl approach. We use things like jump links. We use things like table of contents. We use short to the point 1 to 2 to 3 sentence paragraphs. We want to make sure that we're not writing this huge, cumbersome, what we call filler content, where a user has to navigate down from the top of the post down 1, 2, 3 pages of scrolling before they get into the meat of the post, as an example. We also want to answer the question directly and high on the page. And I already mentioned that previously with the example I said, whether it's, how to cut a tomato or how to boil corn, or maybe you have a unique twist on a recipe. We want to really focus on making sure that we're answering that question directly on the page and as high on the page as possible. Google crawls from the top of the page to the bottom. We don't necessarily need to hide things on a page. The days of having longer content that's not a selling point. It used to be specifically that your ad companies push creators to write longer posts so that we could get more scrolling, therefore more ad impressions, and therefore higher RPMs. That goes against you now. That is actually actively going to hurt you. We don't need to write 5 paragraphs and we can communicate what we want the reader to take away in 2. And so we really want to be succinct about what we're writing. We want to answer the question higher on the page. That's where you're going to see, and many of you know what I'm talking about when I say AI summaries or recipe overviews, or too long don't read summaries. Those are becoming the norm now. And the reason that is that is good for the short attention span of your average user, but it's also fantastic for the average LLM. It allows you to parse the most important information at the top of the page. And then as you scroll down lower, you can spend a little bit more time fleshing out your ideas. This is a big one here. The next thing is we really want to focus on firsthand experience, tested recipes, original photos, and real results. Respectfully, if you're on this call and you're still publishing a recipe with 4 or 5 photos of the finished dish, and that's it, that is not a quality recipe. That is a waste of time. We do not need, even though you might really like your photography, we do not need to see that strawberry cheesecake from 4 different angles. You really want to focus on everything that you're doing having high utility and to be useful. We tend to have a nice featured image at the top. We scroll down, we have a photo of the ingredients. Users love that. Labeled photos of the ingredients routinely score as one of the highest components when we do user testing. That has not changed. It's funny, a good colleague, David Leet of Leet's Culinaria, he's a good friend, and he's an incredibly gifted person who tests everything. Doesn't believe in bullshit, and that's one of the big things I love about him. And he really did not believe that people really wanted those labeled photo ingredients, labeled ingredient photos as much as I had pressed him to communicate. And he tested it, and he was like, God damn it, Casey, I hate when you're right. And it was like 73% of his audience wanted the labeled photos because they're just easier to crawl and view on a mobile device. So again, I know it's a little bit more work, but that's how you stand out. Anytime we can be useful, it's just all about clarity. The whole point of this presentation is to be clear, is to have high clarity and to be useful. Anything that we can do to be useful in our post, we want to do. So firsthand experience, what mistakes did I make? Original photos, specifically individual step-by-step photos, photos of the ingredients, preferably a labeled photo, and let's keep the excessive photos of the finished dish down whenever we can. The next thing is we want to become the source. AI quotes by earning citations and links. You've probably all heard about the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, it's very similar to being a creator these days. One of the things that I concentrate on my audits is showing bloggers how to use ChatGPT to mine the incredible amount of local PR opportunities that are in their local city, county, and state. Because the more of those citations and the more of those web mentions you can generate, the more you have trained the AI to view you as a highest meets needs qualified source. The more you can feed them information on that, the better. I am not the number one Casey Markee in the world because I have killed all other Casey Markees. I am the number one Casey Markee because I never turn down a podcast interview. I try to publish regularly. I try to generate web mentions as much as I can, and I dominate the first 10 pages of Google. I have a knowledge panel that sometimes is great on one day, sometimes it's half on other days. That's pretty hilarious. But knowledge panels are basically Google's biggest signpost that you are a known, trusted entity. My goal whenever I talk to a blogger individually or as part of an audit is I want you to get a knowledge panel. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's not. If you have a cookbook, you have an ISBN number, you're well on the way to getting a knowledge panel. But our goal there is to earn quotes, is to get quoted by other bloggers, to be viewed by Google, to be viewed by LLMs and third parties as a trusted source. And that's where the citations and links come into play. That also builds on number 5, which is building deep topical authority around the niche you own. If I'm a gluten-free blogger, I need to be viewed as the gluten-free authority in my area, first and foremost. We want to start in our own backyard and work out from there. I have built deep topical authority specifically around the food and lifestyle niche. If you go to Google, you type in Gemini, tell me about Casey Markee, you type in food blogging SEO expert or any of those variations, I am the number one result. And it specifically says Casey Markee is noted as having a highest specialization in the food and lifestyle niche. And it shows you all of these individual citations to support that. One of the things that you as a creator need to do is try to define what your goal is. What is it that you want to have deep topical authority in? Is it comfort food recipes? Is it meal planning? Is it, again, gluten-free? Or maybe you have specific information that, there's different variations of that. Are you a gluten-free blogger because you have celiac disease? Are you a gluten-free blogger because you just like to be healthy? What is the story behind that journey that has allowed you to get to that subspecialization with regards to food blogging specifically? And then once we have that, then it's a matter of building that topical authority by having third parties reinforce that. We can say whatever we want on our site, but it's all about external citations and mentions. You are who you say you are, but you are not what you are unless someone externally believes that and cites you. And that's very important. We want to have these third parties do that. So cookbooks, guides, anything that you can do to reinforce that, we want to do that. And it's basically a ranking factor now. The citation, especially for LLM visibility, is the new link. Now, we've talked about some positives there. Now let's talk about a lot of the nonsense or the noise that permeates most of the online forums, that permeates all the audits that I have on a daily and weekly basis. My goal here is to get you good, accurate advice. These are not necessarily my opinions. Some things are just right and some things are wrong, period. So let's get through some of the outdated tactics that you probably are all familiar with that are not necessarily worth your time. And the first one is keyword stuffing and exact match obsession. Just because you're trying to rank for nachos does not mean that everything on the site, including everything in your headings, your page title, your description, your on-page H1, it doesn't mean that everything needs to say gluten-free nachos. That's not really how Google works. Google does not work on an exact match keyword obsession. They work on understanding that there are various entities that go into ranking and returning the highest meets needs results for gluten-free nachos. You, as a blogger, need to understand what that entity makeup is. There's various tools that allow you to do that. I teach multiple ways to do that during my audits. But once we have those, then we have what are called stemmed keywords, and we use that to optimize the page. Now, a lot of people still use Rank IQ. A lot of people use maybe the old, I believe that Topic is still used by a lot of people. They operate, unfortunately, on an outdated view of Google, where Google has moved from more of, Google used to be a linear index. Now it's more of a semantic index. And what that means is that it's an entity atmosphere. You have to practice a concept called entity disambiguation, where the goal is to find all the entities you think are related to your site and input them naturally. And sometimes it's external mentions that help the best. So just understand that the keyword stuffing or having something generate a score on a page, those are outdated techniques that are not going to move the ball these days. And it's something that most bloggers need to leave behind. And that leads us to the second one, padding posts with long intros just to hit a word count. It's amazing how many times I have a blogger come to me and say, well, I was told to write a post that's at least 1,500 words long, or I was told to really focus on selling the user at the top of the page with 3 or 4 paragraphs on what we're talking about, and maybe I'm doing a specific dessert, and there's a technique that I need to define, and I want to make sure that I define that as fully as I can. The reason that padding posts with long intros is still a thing is because people have incorrectly used LLMs to do compare and contrast work. This is where we get into commodity versus non-commodity content. Commodity content refers to shared content between many blogs. If you go into ChatGPT and use a compare and contrast, like, okay, I really need to rank for this keyword. These 4 sites are beating me. Tell me what they're doing that I'm not doing, and then provide me opportunities for improvement. The average blogger will take all that information and expand their post. That is not going to help you rank better. All you've done is republished or repeated commodity content that is already out there on other sites. You've made a post that you had longer, but you didn't make it more fulfilling or more useful for the user. You need to focus on non-commodity content, which is content that those 3 or 4 sites did not cover. And that's where the secret is. And that's why padding posts with long intros or trying to hit a predetermined word count is not a recipe for success in increasing rankings. Then we get chasing every algorithm rumor and quick fix hack. It's funny, I had an audit last week where, and this is also, I actually mentioned this in my new SEO Rules for Bloggers article for Search Engine Land that went live yesterday, where the blogger literally told me, I was told not to put notes in my recipe card because that's duplicate content. And that's she used the word quick fix hack. I was told by someone to go in and remove notes, or I was told someone to go in and remove FAQs because those are not something that Google likes and it's duplicate content. I literally almost fell out of my chair because that's not how duplicate content is a between pages concept. I could literally have a recipe where I repeat the same thing 5 times. I am not going to drop in the rankings necessarily because of that. That is not how duplicate content works. That might be a poor user experience, but I'm not going to get penalized for it. And notes are incredibly important for the average blogger, especially for the average user. If someone was just to print out the recipe card, have you made it a point to provide all the information that they need to make this recipe perfectly the first time? Very rarely are you putting in storage, subs, and additions the most useful information you could put on your notes and recipe card. Instead, it's you reiterating that, hey, I've made this 1,000 times. Don't forget to do this and this. Because someone is going to print out that recipe card and very seldom are they going to come back and check the full recipe post. So 2 things. Number 1, please don't remove notes from recipe cards. And number 2, please make sure those notes are as useful as possible for the average user. Writing for crawlers instead of the people who cook from you. This is where tools come into play. We're not trying to get to a tool score. It's okay not getting to green in Yoast. It is okay not using rank math and having a 75 or an 80 on a post. You're not going to rank any better, I guarantee you. Our goal is to write naturally, is to write conversationally. Our goal is to write in a way that communicates your expertise, maybe your playfulness. Everyone has a unique writing style. When we write naturally, that's what Google wants. Google doesn't need you to write in some nuanced, specific mechanical format or syntax. That is incorrect. If you go and you read the quality rater guidelines, if you go and read the AI quality guidelines for Google, Google's very clear that we want conversational content that provides value to the user. Our algorithms pick up on that and rank you accordingly. Using a post template already used by thousands of other bloggers. This is very common, and this is a you don't know what you don't know situation. There are various templates out there. There are various blogging, you know, you could go out and have a cadence blog. You can go out and have a feast blog. You can go out and have a cultivate WP blog. Various bloggers and various companies will provide a built-in template as part of that format. And the problem with a built-in template is that you are now using a template that's used by thousands or tens of thousands of people. When Google is talking about returning content, uniqueness is a big part of that. Making sure that you stand out. If you're doing something where all you're doing is here's a step-by-steps, and here's a top tip, and here's equipment, and here's related recipes, and whatever, that might not be the best way to go. Now, there's nothing wrong with those elements, but there's also a way that you can change the order of those elements. There's also a way that you can optimize the H2s to stand out. But what you don't want to do is think, okay, well, this template is included, I might as well use it, and think incorrectly that that's going to give you a competitive advantage. Far from it. It will not give you a competitive advantage. It will not allow you to stick out. And so please give some thought to that. And again, that's why in my audits, there's a very specific approach I take, and I refine that approach regularly based on feedback. But that also ensures that, quote, my template isn't going to be surfaced by thousands of other people, because there's no competitive advantage there. This is a big one that I still see, which is updating post dates without making meaningful post updates. This was very common for a lot of people. It was so bad that Google literally published multiple points from John Mueller and others saying, guys, understand that if you change a post date and you make no meaningful changes, we will ignore the update. Google keeps anywhere from 12 to 15 versions of your content for review at any one time. So if you're going to update a post, it better be because you've made a meaningful update. Routinely, an update could be as meaningful as maybe you changed a photo, maybe you included a couple paragraphs. But if you went in to change a typo and you updated a post, that's probably not the best use of updating a post. Or if you've updated a post because you believe that freshness is a ranking factor, that's also something that you'd want to switch. Freshness can be a ranking factor if the updates are quality and of useful and of high enough scope. Most people don't understand that. So again, if your past performance has been, you know what, I don't have time to look at this post, but it hasn't been touched since 2022, I'm going to update it now, probably nothing's going to happen. As a matter of fact, I guarantee very little is going to happen unless you've gone in and made some inherent improvements to the post. Writing a post for an SEO tool score, not for readability. I've mentioned this multiple times because it is still a problem. Don't write to green. Don't write because a tool has told you that, okay, if you add these words, I'm going to get you up to 85, and that's going to be the magic level for you to suddenly pop onto page one. That's not true. It doesn't work. These tools are just guesses at what Google's looking for. Google has repeatedly said they don't even know how all their algorithms work. This is from the head of the website team. This is from engineers themselves I've met privately with. Many times they don't know. If something breaks, that's why it takes so long to find out why. Because they have to get multiple people involved, because not everyone ever, there is no one person that knows the entire algorithm. So we've got those kind of what not to do things out of the way. So let's talk about why clarity beats complexity in a Gemini first world. And we kind of mentioned it about how the cleanest plate will win the citation. Simplicity, clarity, those are the new buzzwords of 2026 and beyond. And the first thing that I want you to understand is that clarity is a ranking signal. How simply you communicate your concept across both to Google and users is a ranking factor. How easy it is to parse your ideas, how easy it is for Google to understand what you're trying to say as opposed to other. We always want to use plain language over jargon. We always want to have direct answers over incredibly long buildups or buried answers. And we want to make sure that everything is scannable. just like you're writing a research paper. We have an introduction, we have a summary, we have very specific subheadings, and we have conclusions. And it's very important that, especially be it from a recipe post or a how-to guide or a simple blog post, that we use that kind of laddered structure all the way through. Everything that you're seeing on Google, that you've seen on Google for the last basically 18 months, especially with the inclusion and the increase in AI overviews. AI overviews are up about 123% just over the last 6 months. That's a 250% increase over the previous 6 months. We've got AI summaries, that means clarity. We've got helpful content, that's clarity. UX signals, that's clarity. What do we mean by UX signals? Well, we mean that if someone pauses on your page because you did a great job including a baking chart for sourdough, that's a UX signal. That's a positive signal for you. Google tracks all of that. Just like if they pause at the top to read your AI summary or your too long, didn't read review at the top. That's a ranking signal as well. Whenever we can get users to pause on your mobile phone and stop scrolling, that is a positive for you. And that's why we really want to focus on making sure that the elements on the page are doing the work for you. Ads come into play there. Recently, I've seen an ad, a very disrupt pop-over interstitial ad on a lot of Raptive Rise sites that was not there 30 days ago. Happened yesterday, it happened last week. The bloggers had no idea that that was a disruptive ad. But the problem with those ads is that if I'm navigating through the site and that same ad happens on 3 different pages, that's terrible. Those users are not going to come back. Really focus on pulling out your phone. Really focus on having a tablet nearby with preferably private IP addresses so that you can see what the average user is experiencing as they go through your site. If you had seen what I had seen yesterday on that site, you would realize that that is not a good experience for users. But those are things that you have to look out for. You can't just trust your ad company to have these experimental units that they roll out and say, okay, well, we're trying this on your site for a couple of days to see how it goes. Because a couple of days is even too much with what I saw yesterday on the site. So let's talk a little bit about what our priorities should be action plan wise. And I've broken it down into 7 simple steps that everyone can start at today, tomorrow, next week. And the first one is add top of post AI summaries. You have seen these on the site. You've seen these. If you were to go up to my new SEO rules for bloggers, I linked to a couple examples. I had an AI buttons article that came out a couple months ago that had examples in there. But the AI summary is basically just a at a glance review of your entire post. Here's how long the recipe is going to take. Here are the main ingredients. Here is a note on some of the ingredients here. Here's why this recipe is really worth your time. And oh, by the way, here's also why this recipe is better than the 10,000 others. I want to sell the user right at the top whenever I can. And the AI summaries do that, and they do it very well. So if you're not familiar with those, happy to provide some links during the Q&A section. We also want to experiment with AI buttons because they drive citations. Again, I wrote an article on this, not a, hey, you should do this because I think you should do it. I wrote an actual article that had data from where we tested this across multiple sites to see if the AI buttons were getting clicked, to see if the AI buttons were driving citations. And they were, but not at a huge number. The bigger the site, the more successful the AI buttons were. AI buttons allow you to do 2 things. They allow you to drive specific mentions of your site into the existing LLMs of your existing audience. The goal, of course, is for those users, everyone has their own personal version of ChatGPT, their own personal version of Perplexity, even Gemini. And so if you provide them the ability to analyze your recipe or your post or your how-to resource with those buttons, you can have the prompt pre-populated and you can actually encourage them to save you into their version of the LLM as a trusted source. All that means is that in the future, if someone is looking for a gluten-free recipe and they have landed on your site previously, you're going to be served their gluten-free recipes. That user will be predisposed to seeing your content in the future if they have been served with these AI buttons previously. Do you need to use them? Absolutely not. It's totally 100% voluntary. But it has never been more competitive to be a food blogger. And if you're going to not use them because someone told you that they don't work, that's on you. And you are not going to be successful as someone who's at least tested them. As I tell bloggers all the time, Casey, what do I do to need to build traffic? And I'm like, well, you got to stand out. You also have to be proactive. You have to learn how to use usertesting.com. You have to learn how to run SEO experiments. But you also have to learn not to trust people who not necessarily have your best interest at heart. They're competitors in many cases. We also want to use clear descriptive H2 subheadings. There was a trend a couple years ago where, and we said it on Top Hat Rank all the time, we were against horribly over-optimizing headings. If I'm on a banana pudding recipe and there are 7 headings on the page and every heading had banana pudding in it, that was not good. There was literally algorithms for over-optimization that routinely went in and slapped those pages. Well, then everyone decided, and I don't know how they decided because it certainly wasn't me. There is no comment from me that ever said, don't put your exact match keyword in your headings. That doesn't exist. They just decided to yank all those off their site. The problem with that is that now that we have LLMs and Gemini, headings are like a roadmap through the content. You need the keyword in some headings, just not all the headings. So I tend to tell bloggers that if you are running an AI summary at the top, if you're running step by step, maybe you have an FAQ block or expert tips, put the keyword in those. I would recommend at a minimum that you have the focus keyword in at least 3 of the headings. And when I say headings, I'm talking about H2 subheadings. I want to say how to make banana pudding. And I want to say, here's banana pudding expert tips. And I might have a summary that says recipe overview, banana pudding. Right there, I've got the heading into 3 H2s, which is more than enough for users in H2s to fundamentally understand and associate what this post is about. But what I don't need to do is spam every heading with a focus keyword or even a secondary keyword because a tool told me that's what I should do. We also want to cut filler content and tighten paragraphs, and this is where AI can be your friend. I tell bloggers all the time, use ChatGPT, use Perplexity, use Claude, use whatever you're comfortable with to make you a better blogger. The more you use those LLMs, the more you train them on your strengths, your weaknesses, and your writing style. You want to go in and have it review your content with a dispassionate eye. What can I do to cut this down to make it more worthwhile? I used 5 paragraphs here. How can I make this more succinct? What can I condense down? That filler content is a negative ranking factor. It is called out 3 times in the AI guidelines. It's called out, 16 to 17 times last I counted in the quality rater guidelines. So we really want to make sure that we're removing any unnecessary language as much as we can, and we cut those paragraphs down. We tighten everything. We also want to lead with firsthand experience and original insights. Making this recipe because it's passed down from generation to generation. This recipe is special for me because of this and this and this. This is why this recipe is unique and differentiated from the many, many others out there because of this. Anytime we can have these firsthand experience and original insights, we want to do. You should also embrace comments on existing recipes from users who have found and experienced your recipes in a very positive light. Maybe you're updating a post that has dozens of existing comments on there. Mine those comments, find the 1 or 2 comments that stand out and highlight those comments higher on the page. That's what users want to see. Users want to see that they're choosing a recipe that's already been well regarded, that already has positive sentiment. The term for that is herd mentality. People tend to want to experience things or visit places or associate with people that have already had positive experiences with those that we already know. And that's the thing that we're going to do with our content and our commentary. We want to lead with those original insights. We want to lead with those firsthand experiences as much as we can. Improving internal linking with descriptive anchors. Internal linking is a ranking factor. Many bloggers sit stunned on a Zoom call when I say, you do realize that every time you link internally, you're telling Google semantically and topically what your site is about, right? So if you've got a post here and I've crawled the entire post and you have not provided one internal link to anything else on your site, you're communicating to Google that this is not a valuable post. Now, many of you know the concept of orphan content, where you have posts on your site that have been sitting there. They do not have internal links to them. That is a very public signal to Google that you do not value the content. If you're not willing to link internally to your own content on a regular basis, why should Google rank that content competitively? So improving your internal linker and then making sure that you use descriptive anchors. We don't say click here. We don't say this is the best recipe. We don't say carrot cake. The odds of all of you ranking for carrot cake on this call are very low. But maybe instead of carrot cake, you say this homemade cream cheese frosting carrot cake, or this carrot cake made with nutmeg. Those are ways for you to use your descriptive anchors, which provide strong semantic internal linking and topical association, but also tell Google what you're trying to rank for. And when we're talking about internal linking, you link by what you can rank for. Very specific. We don't link by these incredibly general keywords that the odds are we're not going to rank for. We're specific. Use tools like Keywords Everywhere. Go into your Google Search Console, sort by search query, find the specific page that you're trying to improve for, find the search queries that Google is returning, use those as your internal links from other posts to that specific target page. You do that and you're going to be shocked at how much traffic you get right away. Cut down on excessive in-post ads and pop-ups. I am 100% against pop-ups, period. Pop-ups destroy your ability to build traffic. I always use the example of, for those of you with young kids or toddlers, if you're walking down the hall and all of a sudden one of your kids comes from a side room and knocks you into a wall, that's basically what pop-ups do, both to your users and to Google. When Google crawls a page and they hit a pop-up, they leave the page immediately and they come back and complete the crawl later. I understand that pop-ups can be great for emails, but you know what also is great for emails? Embeds, print pass, gated print, all of those will work. You don't need pop-ups. I have never seen an example where we turned off pop-ups and didn't improve traffic and bottom line UX. So really start thinking about that. Really start thinking about providing the best experience you can for the user, because that's how you're going to set yourself apart. Clarity, not complexity. That's your competitive edge. I really believe that. The more we can be clear about what we're trying to do, the better we're going to do. And that is it. Thank you so much. We're going to spend some time on questions. But if you need to reach me, there's my email. You can contact me. I'm booking audits for mid to late August right now. And you can just use the contact form on the site. So let me go ahead and stop the screen sharing and
All right.
get back here. Abby, thank you so much.
So we have 2 minutes left. So we're going to do a rapid fire, and really the questions that are coming through in the chat are about AI summaries. That seems to be the popular topic focus. So David and Tyler, I'm going to condense their questions into one. David's asking thoughts on AI summaries that are created by Yoast versus human written. And then would you classify AI summary buttons as a long-term strategy or more of a quick fix?
Well, first of all, that's a good question about the Yoast. Yoast has an AI function, and Yoast AI function is very good. I do recommend that you turn on Yoast AI mode. If you turn on Yoast AI mode, you can use it to write your titles. You can write descriptions. The descriptions, by the way, are very good. They're really good. We were very surprised on an audit the other day. But Yoast also has a summary option, and it'll say key takeaways at the top. And you can audit that. You can change any of the words. You can make a custom pattern of that. You can use those on recipes if that's easier for you. That is good. Anything that you can do to provide a review or a simple summary at the top will work. As for the AI buttons and the AI summaries, it's not a quick fix. I think this is a long-term shift. Gemini is not going to go away. LLMs are not going to go away. Our goal is to make things as accessible as possible in spurts, and summaries and buttons do that. That's it.
So, and Vasanti is wondering how to add these AI summaries and buttons to their site.
Well, there are two very easy ways to do it. If you're on a feast theme, Skylar has built-in AI buttons. You can make an AI summary yourself very quickly. I mean, if you see a site that is doing it, you can literally copy the summary, edit it yourself, and you're good to go. But it's very easy to put together a pattern. If you're using the Hubbub plugin from NerdPress, which is a very high quality plugin, you have to upgrade to the Pro Plus, but they have built-in patterns as well that you could one-click insert a button pattern across the entire site that's already pre-populated with the prompts that you need.
Last question from Anna. Anna said they think that you mentioned a decent semantic search tool in another call. Can you remind us what that was?
There's an entity checker from, let me see if I can pull it up here. Inlinks checker. Yeah, it's called the Entities Analyzer. It's an SEO tool from inlinks.com. So if you wanted to just type entity inlinks checker, that is a free tool. It's very good. You can only use it a couple times a day, but it is free. You can also use ChatGPT. So if anyone is interested in a prompt, let me know. I can give you that information privately, but you can use ChatGPT. Go into ChatGPT and say, I am interested in optimizing this post for a specific entity rich, specific entities as related to, say, Wikipedia as a third-party tool. Scan my content, tell me which entities would be appropriate, and apply them to the appropriate page on Wikipedia, and it'll match those for you. It'll even put it into the appropriate web page schema code for you.
Perfect. Okay. I feel like we could take more and more time answering these questions, but I think the takeaway here is that Casey is a wealth of knowledge and resource, and he provided the information to get in contact with him via email. Casey, will you make these slides available, or is that something that people can get in contact with to get some?
Well, we could do that. I'll just upload them to Google Drive. Happy to do that. Or again, you have the presentation here as well, so you can get through those. But yeah, I'll upload them. They're uploaded to Google Drive. I can share that and
So
send it over. That's no problem. We'll put them in the show notes.
Yep, we can totally do that. And I think if we could add some links to some AI summaries that you think are great, I think there would be interest in that. But again, thank you so much for your time and just keeping us up to date on everything. And then if you guys are interested in seeing Casey in real life and talking about this in person, we would love for you to join us at Tastemaker 2027, our 10th anniversary in San Antonio. MediaWise is our closing party sponsor. So
Yes.
that means Casey loves to party. Our theme is a disco rodeo.
Absolutely.
So think
Gonna be good.
denim and diamonds, a special drink sponsored by Casey, and talking about all these things.
And we're gonna ride a bull, right? We're gonna have a mechanical bull.
There
I'm putting you on the spot here.
mechanical
That's what I'm saying.
bulls. If somebody wants to sponsor it. But
Could be.
yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. And
We'll
we
see
can
how it
chat
goes.
more about this.
Looking forward to seeing all of you in San Antonio. It is going to be a fantastic time. Thank you so much for having me today, and please stay cool out there. It's crazy how hot it is outside. Be careful.
Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.